What's going on, traders? In this video, I'm going to give you guys three stocks I think are going to absolutely go parabolic and pay out 100%. But before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So I'm not going to go too deep into the NQ or the futures or the ETFs or anything like that. My sentiments hasn't really changed from the last video. I will kind of like breeze through it or try my best to. You guys know how I like to ramble sometimes. So when we're looking at the NQ, my targets hasn't really changed as far as upside and even potential downside as well. My first target is obviously 19,800, and then after that, we're looking at this fair value gap at around 20,300, 20,500. Now, you guys said that you like the fair value gaps on my charts, so we're going to keep them up for now. But if anything changes, if you guys decide to, it's too noisy, whatever the case may be, then we'll adjust from there. But right now, that's what I think the Nasdaq is trying to do, and that's why I think a lot of the futures and ETFs are trying to head towards, as well as stocks. They're trying to mitigate these fair value gaps. And as you guys can see, if you're new to the YouTube channel, we've been trading in this channel for about a year now. This is the daily time frame, by the way. We bounced here, we bounced here, we rejected up here, we rejected up here, bulls got trapped up here, we broke down, and now we're rolling back into the pattern. Now, like I've always said on this channel, anytime you roll back into a channel, a pattern, a bull flag, rising wedge, whatever the case may be, chances are you're going to continue in this direction. Here's a great example right here. We broke out and we rolled back into the channel and we broke down completely. And now we're rolling back into the channel again, so it's safe to say that we're going to continue in this direction based on historical data or based off experience, my experience. We'll just go by that, okay? So I don't want you guys to just run away with this idea, but constantly on this channel, I've been proving to you guys over and over again that usually when you roll back into a pattern, you're going to continue in that direction. And right now, that looks like what the Nasdaq is trying to do. So nothing much has changed. Now, heading into tomorrow, I'm not expecting much of anything. As you guys know from this channel, historically, Mondays mirror Fridays. What does that mean? That means when Fridays are bullish, typically Mondays are bullish. When Fridays are bearish, typically Mondays are bearish, so on and so forth. And Friday, we didn't really see much action, so I'm expecting the same thing Monday. Chances are we're just going to wait on news. Now, what I will say is that tomorrow we do have a Fed member speaking. Now, I don't know how much of an effect that's going to have on anything. And then we have more news at 10 Eastern. I doubt the market is going to care too much about that. I think the focus is going to be this FOMC member. Whether he says something crazy or not is up in the air, but that is something to pay attention to. But right now, it's only safe to assume that Monday is probably going to be a boring day. Now, what I will say as far as potential downside here, because we are in, bears are really, really deep in this area. I mean, when you guys saw Friday, we had a very hard time breaking out of this area. So what I will say is that if we do potentially get bad news or whatever the case may be, we could be looking at a retest of 19,200 250 range before we continue to head higher. Okay, I do expect some type of retest of this daily liquidity zone before we head higher. Okay, we could continue to head higher. That would be pretty scary in my opinion, but again, I mean, you just got to enjoy the ride while it's here. So that's my thoughts as far as this week. Now, I'm not saying this drop is going to happen tomorrow, by the way. Let me be clear. But I do think at some point we're going to want to retest this daily supply and demand zone, especially with all these bears here. Okay, there's a lot of bears in this area. So at some point, I do imagine we're going to want to retest this area. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to happen Tuesday. It could just we just could continue to go higher and just break down. But it's just something to pay attention to. I've told you guys in plenty of videos that bears are very, very strong in this area. I mean, they're deep. We saw it Friday. We're having a hard time breaking out this area. So I imagine that's going to continue until we get some type of amazing news. Okay. So that's my thoughts as far as NQ. Let's look at the ES. So ES is holding up pretty well. I told you guys in the last video that I wanted to see the ES get above 5,500. It did that. 5,440. It did that. I kind of went backwards there, but hopefully you guys are keeping up here. And then next we want to see ES get above 5,600. Okay. And again, it's pretty much the same thing we're looking at in regards to the NQ. At some point in time, I do think ES is going to either, and you guys see these fair value gaps that's pretty much been left open towards the bottom here, where we get back out of this channel range and potentially retest 5,500, and lowest we could potentially go, which I'm not really counting on, but it is on the table here considering that how strong bears are in this area, where we potentially look at some type of maybe a bear trap before we head higher. Okay, and the reason why I say it's a potentially a bear trap is because everything else wouldn't agree with this. As far as the Nasdaq, the triple Qs, and even the SPY, everything else wouldn't agree with this. So if everything else was more in agreement with this move, then I would say, okay, it's a legit move. We're definitely dropping from here. But things can change, obviously. It's not written in stone or anything like that, but it's something to pay attention to. Now, the next move we want to see, obviously, is us get above 5,600, okay, on the ES. That's pretty much all I care about in regards to the ES. There's really not much else to talk about here. But again, I would be wary of a potential retest heading at the beginning of this week. Probably the Jackson Hole event, who knows? But I don't think we're just going to continue to just skyrocket from here. Okay. If anything, the market does need a reset. Not a reset, I would say a cool down phase where we either consolidate or we see a drop. Okay. And everybody's indicators get reset. Okay. So it's something to pay attention to, especially if you're one of those traders that use RSIs. I don't use RSIs, but I imagine the market is going to like really want to cool down at some point, and we'll see what happens from there. So that's really all I have for the ES. Triple Qs. Triple Qs, daily time frame. Same thing we saw on the NQ. And like I said on the NQ, at some point, I do think a retest is going to happen. And the lowest we could be looking at on the NQ is about 460. We kind of just like really took off. Okay. We just really took off and left everything behind. So this is scary, in my opinion, because we're at 475 right now. And I told you guys that right now we're seeing an elevator up. I just don't see this as a healthy move. Okay. Pullback was healthy, in my opinion. But this just continue upwards move with no structure or anything. Like we're literally, there's no structure in this area. So I just don't see this being healthy long term for the market. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But you guys know, I've said this in the last video. I've said this plenty of times before. You want to see an elevator down and a staircase up. Good example here. You got structure, staircase, you break out. You got staircase, you break out. Okay. It literally looks like stairs. Okay. You got your step here, and then you go up to your next step, so on and so forth. So that's what I'm looking at as far as the triple Qs. I just don't really, I'm not a fan of this upwards movement. And by all means, make your money to the upside, but I'm just not a fan of just how we're not creating any structure and we're just constantly going higher and higher. And if we continue to do that from here without no type of pullback, then I will be even more cautious of what's to come or what could potentially come within this market, because it's just not a normal move to see as far as the elevator up. And I showed you guys examples of this plenty of times where the NASDAQ went like 800 points to 1,000 points overnight in one day, and then it like plummeted the next day. Like it was no structure or anything like that, just elevated all the way up. So again, keep this in the back of your mind when you see moves like this: elevator down, a pure drop like this, staircase up. You're literally a staircase up. You structure, breakout, structure, breakout. You want to see that when you're talking about upwards movement in the market. You do not want to see an elevator up. Okay. So that's my little ramble right there. That's my little rant right there. But regardless, as far as the triple Qs, like I said with the NASDAQ, at some point I do expect some type of retest here at around 463, 460 range before we potentially go higher. And if we continue to just go higher from here, then I would be even more cautious of things and be a little skeptical of this market, even more skeptical than I am now, actually. But the highest I do think we can go as far as the triple Qs is 490, 492, which is around previous highs or close to previous highs. The highest we went was about 503. At that point, if we do get up here, there is potential to head to 510. Someone asked me in one of my YouTube comments, do I think we could see 510 this year? And I still think that's definitely possible. I'm not like hardcore bearish or anything. I definitely think all-time highs is on the table, especially if we continue on from this point. But we'll have to see what happens this week. We got some major catalysts this week. We got a lot of Fed members speaking this week. But this is the move that I'm pretty much expecting, at least between tomorrow and Wednesday. And as we get closer to the Jackson Hole event, I do think the market is going to start taking off even more. Okay, I definitely do. I think, and I've said this before, I tell you guys this all the time. Anytime we have events such as Jerome Powell, FOMC, CPI, the market has a habit of running into those events. So it would make sense, and I'm not saying this is written in stone, because as you guys can see, we're not following any laws here. But um, I would like to see a retest here, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We start heading down or whatever the case may be. And then maybe Wednesday close, Thursday, we start seeing that recovery back up heading into the Jerome Powell speech. Okay. Because that's usually how it goes when he's about to speak, or we have CPI, or we have FOMC meetings, things like that. The market usually is bullish heading into those events. It's And usually those events happen on a Wednesday or maybe even a Thursday sometimes. So and then you get like Monday is bullish, and then Tuesday is bullish, and then Wednesday you get a little bit of bullishness, and then the market tends to sell off on Thursday and cool down. So that's the move I'm expecting. It's not written in stone or anything, but if we just continue up from here, guys, I would just say be very cautious. That's just not a normal move. I mean, looking at the SPY, I mean, look at this, guys. This looks absolutely insane, in my opinion. Like that looks crazy. There's no staircase at all. Again, staircase. You want to see stuttering, you break out, you start creating another staircase. Boom, elevator down. Okay, staircase, you kind of broke down here. Staircase, you break out, staircase, you break out, and then you see elevator down. Okay, just a smooth move down, as smooth as possible. Okay, but this is just a pure elevator up. I'm not a fan of this move. I'm going to keep telling you guys this, and I'm going to keep reminding you guys to be very cautious of moves like this. V-shaped recovery, I don't care about any of that. All right, this is not a normal move. Okay, I don't care what anyone tells you. All right, so that's my thought process. As far as the spy goes, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. We broke back into this channel, but now I want to see us break it back to 50, above 55, 556. What am I saying? 556. Sorry, 556. You want to see us break above that, and then we're heading towards 560. We get above 560 at that point. There's definitely a chance for all-time highs on the spy. As far as all-time highs go, my first target would be 580 and then 600 on the spy. I definitely think we could see those targets at least 580 sometime this year. Now, if we see all-time highs in the month of August, then I would be very, very like skeptical of this market, and I think September can bring on a storm. Okay, between September and October can bring on a storm, and historically, September is bearish, October is bearish. So if we start seeing all-time highs in the month of August, I would be, for lack of better wording, pretty terrified heading into September. But I would be terrified for bulls. I would say that much. You guys know I trade any and every direction. I don't care where the market goes. As long as it makes me money and makes us our Discord members money, and makes you money as well. But regardless, this move is just not healthy in my opinion. 556 is what you want to look out for on the SPY. And same thing here. So you have these fair value gaps towards 548. We never really retested it. So I would expect a move like this. If we can't manage to get past these bears right here, which we had a hard time doing on Friday, um, I imagine we're just going to retest 548, 550 range, possibly head as low as 544, and then from there we'll have to see what happens. But 544 is where I think there's potential for a recovery, and then maybe, just maybe, and I failed to mention this on the ES, we form some type of inverse head and shoulders pattern. If we can form that, then by all means, we're more than likely headed towards all-time highs, especially if we can break the neckline. So this right here, 556, will be the neckline. Okay, so something to pay attention to heading into tomorrow. Again, I'm just not a fan of us continuing up from here. I do expect some type of cool off phase, some type of like, I'm not saying I'm not completely bullish or anything like that, but right now I just think the market needs to cool off. We haven't taken a break, and that's the scary part about things. Okay, so just keep an eye out for things. So let's get into the good stuff. Let's get into the juicy stuff. Actually, first, sorry, we got to get into Bitcoin. I'm sorry. All right. Um, so Bitcoin is slowly changing my mind. But it's just still playing games right now, as you guys can see. Um, above 58K, pretty bullish. Okay, we want to see it get above 60K and actually hold it. Tried and it keeps failing. Okay, but right now, slowly but surely, Bitcoin is slowly changing my mind. We go to the daily time frame. It's still below the 200 SMA, but at some point, I do imagine Bitcoin is going to want to catch up with the market. Um, the Bitcoin, the futures, they typically don't leave each other for too long. So at some point, either Bitcoin is going to want to catch up with the market, or the market is going to really just decide to catch up with Bitcoin. But they don't leave each other for too long. So at some point, either Bitcoin is going to go like parabolic, which right now I do think it has the potential to head towards 65K if it can actually get above 60K. But if it breaks below 58K, then chances are we're heading towards 55K. So I would pay attention to Bitcoin. It's still not giving me much here, but it's slowly but sure it's trying. Okay, the fact that it reclaimed 58K without going to 58K speaks volume. It just shows a lot right there. So hopefully this candle like retracts here back above about 59,300, and then we'll see what happens from there. But that's all I really have. I mean, it's still below the 200 SMA, so that's really what I have for Bitcoin. All right, so let's get into the stocks. Let's get into the stocks. So the first stock that I am looking at that I absolutely I just don't like trading, but I saw it and I'm going to give it to you guys. All right, so Google. Google is the first stock I'm looking at right now. 165. If Google can get above 165, this thing can absolutely like go insane. Um, chances are it can head to my first target will be about 170, and then after that, I'm looking at a move towards this fair value gap, which we have not mitigated yet, between 178 and 180. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at for Google. Now, I do think it's going to continue from here, and it could play games in this ascending triangle. It is forming an ascending triangle. As you guys can see, we keep making higher lows within there, and then we have a flat top right here. So that's why I say 165. 165 is our flat top. So Google could just keep playing games in this area for however long until we get whatever news. And then once it breaks 165, I definitely think this thing is going to like start heading towards that 170. If it gets in this area right here, like in this area, very illiquid. All right, even right here is pretty illiquid. There's not much stopping Google from continuing higher at this point, and especially if you get in this area here. So that's what I will be looking for on Google. So if you want to see, so let's look at some contracts. So if you want an idea on what contracts to look at, if you're new to trading, I always recommend to have a options chain. It doesn't matter what it is as long as it's obviously good. So as far as Google contracts, I like 165. Anything higher than that, you're kind of like really pushing it. So I like 165. I like anything 165 contracts. 170, you're kind of pushing it in my opinion, but I really like the 165 cons. Now, um, so August 23rd, I like the 165 contracts for August 23rd. August 16th, that's already passed. But as you guys can see, we can scroll over a little bit because I don't think it shows everything. But these 165 contracts have a 4.28 million premium, and then you have 167.5 cons with 1 million premium, and then that's pretty much it. You got a lot of 160. You got plenty of 165 contracts, so that just shows that institutions are really backing this play out up. But if you really want to play it safe, I actually like the September 6 contracts, the 165. They have a 2.48 million premium. These are very good contracts in my opinion. September 6th is like 2 weeks from here. So I would definitely, considering that we have the Jackson Hole event this week, I would definitely start looking at dated contracts and not risk same week contracts. That's just my opinion. Do what you want with that information. But if you're like, if you got the capital and you're just really willing to risk it off, then by all means go with the same week contracts for August 23rd. But I really like the September 6th contracts. I think those are the safest thing you can get into. There were others, but I can't. Let me see. Actually, let's look at the 15th. Let's see what, if anything. So as you guys can see, more 165 cons, even on the 15th, which was the day before. 165 cons, 165, 165 for September 6th. You have this was last week, and then you have this for August 23rd. So definitely look for those 165 contracts. That's definitely what I will be looking for as far as our Discord. If you want to see how we're going to play Google, join the Discord. Discord link is in the description below. But that's the first stock I'm looking at. Really like Google. First target will be 170. After that, I'm looking at this fair value gap at around 180. I'm honestly not looking any higher than that. Okay. I don't want to hold Google for a long time. That's just me. All right. Next stock is Meta. So I talked about Meta in the Discord. I actually really like Meta here. The issue is that if we are expecting some type of retest this week, Meta can head as low as about 518. So it can retest this, well, actually lower than that, which is around 512, 510, somewhere around that. So I'm really like playing cautious this at the beginning of this week because I can't see us really just pumping all the way until Friday. I think that's insane. Okay. Now, If we get a sell off, maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, whatever the case may be, where we get that retest, then that would be beautiful. And we go back to Google, and this is why I kind of like would prefer that you guys wait. And this is not like a recommendation. This is more so an idea for myself. I would prefer to wait to see like what happens on Monday, see what happens when this guy speaks. But Google can just keep playing games in here and go back to 159. But I think 159 is a great entry. You get a retest of 159, beautiful entry. If it breaks 165 and holds, then that's a beautiful entry as well. So you got two options there. If you want to just jump the gun and just soon as open, you just jump right in. I think that's pretty safe. I think that's safe as long as you pick the September contracts. If you pick the same week contracts, August 23rd, then you're asking for trouble in my opinion. But in regards to Meta, so it broke into this, what is this, the daily supply and demand zone, and then it broke back down. So again, if the market does decide to retest, Meta can, my first target will be 518, and then after that 512. But I'm not telling you guys to take puts on Meta. I'm telling you guys to just be careful for that. What I will say is that I think Meta is going to head towards 550. Okay, sometime I would say sometime this week, between this week and next week. The only issue with Meta is that the contracts are very expensive. Like no matter what date you pick, they're just expensive all around. So that's my only issue with Meta. The cheapest you can go is about the 530 contract. So if Meta drops, then obviously the contracts prices will drop and you'll get a better premium for your, for your play. But yeah, as you guys can see, 540. Well, no, these are August 16th. We're trying to. So 545 calls, 2.9 million premium. I know you guys can't see the premium. You just gotta trust me there. 550 calls for August 23rd. And then if you really want to play it safe, which I don't mind this at all, I'm gonna actually go show you guys why this is a solid play. 600 calls for November 15th. And then that's pretty much it. So I do have a price. I do think Meta is going to start heading towards 550. The contracts are just expensive, guys. I'm sorry, okay, but Google's pretty cheap. Okay, it's pretty cheap. Cheap is all subjective, but if you got the capital for Meta, by all means, go do your thing. Okay, but if we look at August 16th, we were just looking at August 15th, by the way. But now we're looking at August 16th. As you guys can see, even more contracts for like 540, August 23rd. I haven't actually looked at the 540 cons, so feel free to check those out. 555, August 23rd. 550. And again, I don't think it's really safe to play same week contracts with Jackson Hole event and Chairman Powell speaking this week. I just don't think that's really safe. But the further you go out, obviously, the more you're going to pay, especially with Meta. Meta is not a cheap stock. Okay, so something to keep in mind here. Now let's look at Meta and why I think that 600 call is actually pretty solid. We look at the weekly time frame and there's a double bottom here. And your neckline is at 540. Okay, about 540, 542. We'll say 542 to be safe. But you got a bottom here, another bottom here. You retested this, you mitigated this fair value gap, right? So I do think there is potential for Meta to actually see 600 by November, if not more, if not higher. Okay. But you do have a clean double bottom here. I wouldn't say it's super clean, but it meets the double bottom standards. Both both bottoms bounced off the fair value gap here. Definitely can go higher. If you want to play it safe, watch for that 540 break and see what happens from there. And that's it. So that's what I have for Meta. Meta looks great right now, but if we are looking at a retest, I would say a good entry would be 518. So if we look at a retest, right? 518, 510. Between 518, 510 is what I'm looking at for Meta, as far as potential entry points. If you want to play it safe, you look for 540. Okay, you look for that 540 break, and then you go from there. Okay, but right now, Meta looks like it can go parabolic. It's just a matter of when. And if we don't get that retest and we just continue higher, then by all means, you do what you want with that information. Okay. Um, Last stock, Tesla. Tesla. So Tesla is last because it's probably one of my favorites right now. We made an absolute killing last week off Tesla, so I'm looking to repeat the process. Um, so what I would like to see from Tesla is a retest of 208. If we do see that retest, I want to see a retest of 208. potentially, if it starts heading back into this ascending triangle, then I'm not a fan of it anymore. But if it can retest 208 and then head higher from there, you guys know my price target is 225, and so far it's heading towards that target. But there's a fair value gap at 225 that needs to be mitigated. It's right here, clear as day. 225, 230 tops. But what I will say about Tesla, okay, what I will say about Tesla, I personally think, where did I see it? Where did I see it? Oh, it got erased. Okay, here we go. Hold on. Give me, so boom. So if Tesla can break two, what is this? 225, I would say 230 to be safe. I think there's potential for Tesla to head towards 300. Okay. And I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight. I'm not saying it's going to happen soon. But I do think Tesla at this point in time has very, very high potential to start seeing 300. I know that sounds like a crazy price target, but I definitely think that's going to happen. Let's look at the contracts real quick. Let's look at some plays for Tesla. Oh, I don't think anything came in for August 16th. So let's look at the 15th, or maybe I just typed it in too slow. Okay, so I don't know what's going on, but regardless, Tesla looks great. Okay, Tesla looks great. Like I said, a good entry right now. This is the weekly time frame. As you guys can see, we rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, rejected here. We rejected these areas plenty of times, right? If we can break this trend again on the weekly time frame and actually hold above it, Tesla can go absolutely insane. I don't know what news would cause this because I know the robo-taxi news was postponed and whatnot, but Tesla could go parabolic if we just so happen to break out of here. So what I will say is that if you really want to play it safe, wait for 225 break. Okay, that's your safest bet. 225, 226, give or take. What I will say is that Tesla broke out of this. We go to the 4 hour time frame actually. It broke out of this ascending triangle. So I do think it has more upside. And if we do the measurement for the potential target here, so all we do is measure the open and close of the ascending triangle. We bring it to the breakout point, and Tesla can head as high as about 235. Let me actually try this again because I don't understand why it's not working. Okay, so Meta works. Am I typing it in wrong? There we go. Okay, that was weird. All right, so so yeah. As far as contracts go with Tesla, so forgot what I was looking at, so we'll just have to run through this real quick. So in regards to Tesla, considering that I already think Tesla is going to 225, the measurement for the ascending triangle is about 235, and the highest I think Tesla could go is within the 300 sometime this year. I don't think that's shocking at all. So what I will say is that there are 240 contracts for September 13th. I haven't looked at those, but I think that just sounds solid in general, considering where I think Tesla could go. Um, what else? 220 calls. Those were for last week. 225 calls last week as well. 230, 225. Here we go. So 225 calls for August 23rd. Again, I'm not a fan of anything that's the same week. So the best I'm looking at is the September calls. But I'm just not a fan of anything that's within the same week as Jerome Powell right now. This Jackson Hole event is kind of like setting things back. I like these. Okay, 220 August 30th calls. I definitely think those are more safe. These are even better in my opinion. 230. If you're looking for something cheaper, 230 calls for August 30th, 2024. Let's look at the 16th to see if anything's backing up. So yeah, you got more 235 calls. I know you guys can't see the premiums, but trust me, they're pretty high. Um, and then right here, you got 260 calls for November 15th. I imagine those are a bit pricey, but like I said, I think Tesla is going to see 300 sometime this year. Okay. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to come with drawbacks or anything like that. I'm not going to say it could come with drawbacks. It's obviously going to come with drawbacks. It's not going to just shoot there. Okay. Um, very shocking if it does, right? But regardless, 230 calls for this week. So as you guys can see, there's a lot of 230 between 220 calls, 230 calls for this week. So I definitely think it's obvious that Tesla is going to head higher this week. Um, and as you guys can see, there's not much date. There's not too many dated contracts. But if we're talking about like good contracts that I would personally take, that I may look to take sometime this week with the Discord. I'm looking at these 220 calls, 830, and then if I really want to play it safe, because I already showed you guys the measurement of this ascending triangle is all the way at about 234, 235. So if I really wanted to go by that, did I lose it? What was those two? There was 230. You guys remember, right? We was talking about those 230 calls for August 30th as well. So if I really wanted to go by the measurement of the ascending triangle, I'm definitely going to look at those 230 contracts and possibly enter a position there, depending on the how the contract looks. Like I said, I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at Tesla. I looked at everything else. I just haven't looked at Tesla right here. So these contracts right here, they have a 2.3 million premium. I think it's a very solid play. And the fact that there's like more 230 calls or even 225 calls, 220 calls, things of that nature, I definitely would consider this play. Okay, I think this is the safest bet. Like I said, if you go for this week, then you're really playing with fire, in my opinion, because this week has a high chance of eating your premiums. 240 calls, definitely for September 13th. Pretty solid play right here. So that just supports, if anything, that supports the 230 calls. Okay, that just shows that institutions potentially have an idea that they think Tesla can go much higher within the next few weeks. So that's what I have for Tesla, and that's pretty much what I have in general. That's all I have for this video, guys. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you want to see how I'm going to play these plays, if you want to enter in these plays the same time I enter, the same time our Discord enters, and see when we exit, when we take profit, then join the Discord link in the description below. If you want access to SMS text messages alert, our website link is in the description below. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just subscribe, and then it'll ask you if you want to join SMS messages alert, and then all my signals get sent directly to your phone. Okay, sent directly to your phone via text message. That way you don't have to go through the Discord app if you don't want to. Maybe you're too busy throughout the day, you work too much, you have children, whatever the case may be. If you don't have time to go through a Discord app, then it'll just be sent directly to your phone. But that's all I have for this video. Good luck trading this week. It's going to be a crazy week, I imagine. And until the next video, traders, have a good one.